This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
During a recent podcast, I was talking about objective setting and about innovation objectives. Now, I didn't mention it in any detail, but it seems some of you caught it and actually sent questions in about me going into more detail about how to include innovation into your objective setting process, the process that you go through on a normal basis for whatever your organization does. So that is what we're going to talk about in today's show, setting innovation objectives. Now, one of the things that I've learned over the years of being an innovation leader is that if you can get innovation objectives set into individual objectives, team objectives, and organizational objectives, you will secure and gain a huge amount of alignment around the innovation funnel, the innovation focus, your innovation strategy throughout your teams and organizations. So why do we set objectives? It is for this alignment. It's about getting people aligned, getting everybody into the boat, and everybody rowing in the right direction. Now, there's ways that I use to set objectives, and look, objectives are incredibly hard. You wouldn't think it would be hard, but it is incredibly hard to think through an objective strategy for an organization. When I was managing teams at HP, teams would do objectives, and you kind of had a bottom roll up, right? Because the theory was you trust the engineers that are on the front line to know what needs to be done, and it's simply an informational process up through the organization. What I've found, though, over the years is that works okay, but what you find is frontline engineers or staff, individual contributors, they're not quite sure that what they're doing is aligned with where the organization is going. And how do they know that what they're doing is going to have meaningful impact and contribute to the success of the organization that they are part of? So I've gone through kind of my own metamorphosis on what I think about objectives and how I set objectives. And I am a big believer in what are called OKRs, objectives and key results. Now, if you're not familiar with OKRs, you can go out and search online. There's a bunch of books on it. There's actually OKR software that you can use. A little history on the OKRs. OKRs were founded by and created by Andy Grove at Intel. Now, I've had the benefit or having the experience of having my butt kicked by Andy Grove. I was doing some work with Intel. This is back when I was in the Valley in the early 80s. And I was doing a project for Intel. I was actually a consultant to Intel and happened to have a level of engagement with Andy, which was, one, inspirational, but two, he was a tough customer. He was a tough boss, but boy, he could get unbelievable results and unbelievable loyalty from his team. And Andy was the one who defined this process called OKRs. Now, I don't believe in the full-blown OKRs because now, in fact, Google uses OKRs and Facebook uses OKRs and HP, through certain parts of the organization, used kind of like an OKR structure. Having sat at the feet of Andy and seeing how he used it, I'm using a very simplified version. And that is the objective defines where you want to go. What is the goal line? What is the achievement that you're trying to drive to? And then the key results are the steps or the milestones to get there. The key results are the measurable steps. You achieve something and it's getting you closer to achieving the objective. And typically there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 to 5 key results for every objective. And the way I do it today is I'll set an objective. An objective can be a 1-year, 2-year, or 3-year objective. And then I lay out the key results for a 6-month rolling process. So I know what the key results for this 6 months are, and I have visibility into the key results for the next 6 months. And then it's a cascading rolling forward process. And what I have found is when you can be inspirational and clear on the objectives, and people see that the key results, the activities that they're doing are aligned with that objective, wow. The impact it has on an organization, the impact it has on success is meaningful. And you've seen this with a lot of the leading startups in Silicon Valley. You saw it with Intel. But again, you can go out, you can search for OKRs and see, all the write-ups. But again, I do a very, very simplified version. I'm just doing setting the objective, which is the vision. The key results are the steps to get there. In my past, what I would see as objectives is everybody would say, make the objective measurable. So they, in effect, try to squash where you're going with the measurable result, which means if it's measurable, you're tied to performance review cycles, end of year budgeting. And so you artificially shut down your objectives to be tied to some arbitrary calendar. In this case, objectives could be a year, 18 months, 2 years, 5-year objectives. And then the key results are just marching along to achieve that objective. So I've also been on the other end where I've failed in setting objectives. There's a lot of failures and attempts and not so great outcomes when objective setting. Some objectives are just too task oriented. You're not giving people the vision where to go. You're actually laying the breadcrumbs on the floor for them to achieve. And therefore, you train your teams to basically do as they're told versus bringing their whole creative human ingenuity abilities to what it is you're trying to achieve. So one is don't make them too task oriented. And also in my past, when people set objectives, those objectives were locked in concrete until the end of the year when people went through performance reviews. And that is a big mistake. Objectives should be able to be modified on a continuing basis. They should be able to be changed, be modified, and therefore be adapted basically on what you learn. The other is you tend to make objectives because you're trying to cover a whole wide range of things. You make them fuzzy. You make them unclear. They're not specific enough. And when it comes to innovation, you have to have a level of specificity in order to get people to align so they know what the expectation is. If you make it fuzzy, it's kind of like trying to find your way through a fog. You're kind of groping around trying to find your way. Clarity is key. Clarity is key. Now, the ultimate objective for goal setting is two things. Alignment. You're trying to get your entire organization aligned on a direction. And autonomy, meaning you're not telling people how to do things, you're telling them what the goal is, and they can bring their entire abilities, their creativity, their ingenuity to how they want to achieve it. It's not about you telling them how to get there. You're telling them where to go and what the measurement of success is. The how you leave to them. And when you can get alignment and autonomy, that is an extremely powerful result. And in fact, if you do objectives well, now OKRs is just one of many ways you can do objectives. So however your organization does it, do it that way. I'm going to share with you how I do it. Done well, you get exponential success. Done poorly, you get a lot of confusion. My advice when setting objectives is take the time. This isn't something you whip out in a 1 hour, close your door, sit down for an hour and look at a piece of paper. I've literally just in this last cycle of OKR setting, I literally have hundreds of hours working through and really thinking deeply about the OKRs. And then I write and rewrite because it's all about the words. You got to get the clarity. You can't expect people to try to discern what you mean. And so therefore you have to do it. And I test it. I'll put it in front of people and say, what do you think this means? What do you think this objective? What would constitute the success of this objective? I also use this as a checkpoint in conversations. So as I meet with individuals, I meet with teams, I'll be using these as the checkpoint. And the other is be transparent. In fact, this year I'm hanging my OKRs on the outside of my cube. Anybody in my team can see it. And then you can change and adjust with the team as you learn more. And the other is, this is a big one, avoid too many objectives. Particularly when people shift to an OKR, which gives you a level of comfort and visibility, people go way overboard and try to promise way too much. 3 to 5 objectives with 2 to 4, 3 to 5 kind of key results for each objective. So if you do 5 objectives and 5 key results for each, you've got 25 results you're going to get measured against. That's a lot. So manage yourself appropriately. Don't overpromise. And avoid doing too many objectives and key results. Okay, we're going to continue on our conversation today talking about objectives for innovation. Next segment, we'll talk about what are some good innovations. Be right back. Today we're talking about setting innovation objectives. In the first segment, we talked about how I think about objectives, what are good objectives, what are bad objectives, more about what the results are, and some just basic fundamental advice. Now let's get into some details specifically around innovation objectives. There are some basic elements of good innovation objectives. And the basic elements for me is have a framework. Now on this show, I've shared my framework, which is FIRE, F-I-R-E, focus, ideation, ranking, execution. If you've not heard that before, go back to some older shows. This has been talked about for the last more than decade. Well, we're now in the 14th year of this show, and there will literally be tens, if not hundreds of episodes talking about the FIRE framework. What I look at when I'm looking at innovation objectives is around this framework. So the F stands for focus. This is the strategy on where you are going to search. So what objectives would you set? Like setting the objective of what focus areas you're going to look into of the next 6 months. And what do I mean by focus areas? We typically talk about the focus areas in 3 elements: who, what, and how. Who, what focus would you look at for over the next 6 months around knowing more about your customer? The what is what focus areas would you think about from the standpoint of your products or services? The third focus area is the how you operate. How do you innovate your team, your organization, your company to be better and be better than your competition? So the focus is focusing on where you're going to do the search. And so your objective is you want to expand that search. You want to continue to be searching. You want to find new search areas. The key results is actually doing it, going out and doing the groundwork, doing the research, getting out there and seeing what's available. The other is another objective for focus could be relooking at areas that you overlooked. You maybe thought about them 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Pick those up, go back, look at that old research, update it with new information, and see if there's new areas of interest that could be the sourcing or an area that you should focus on to generate ideas in, because it may turn out to be something that could be highly beneficial to your organization. So that's focus. Ideation. Ideation, it's the fuel for innovations. It's where you generate the ideas. Now, keep in mind, there are literally hundreds of ways to generate ideas. The most common one everybody talks about is brainstorming. But you can go out and buy books like Thinker Toys and others, which will literally teach you hundreds of ways to generate ideas. Ideation isn't a process. Ideation just says you need tools and you need a capability that works within your organization. How do you generate ideas? What do you actually do? And then getting those ideas and collecting them and somehow. So an objective there would be experiment with different approaches to creating ideas, right? So test them. How does brainstorming work? How does electronic suggestion box work? How does surveying work? Try a couple different ways and then measure them. Which one gave you the most ideas? Which one gave you the highest quality ideas, right? So part of the objective may be, let's go experiment over the next 6 months on new ways to generate ideas in the ideation process. Another objective is deploy maybe an IMS, an idea management system. If you don't have an IMS, if you're using spreadsheets, you may want to look at using an IMS tool. An IMS tool allows you to capture, track, recycle ideas, score ideas, rank them from the standpoint of the ones that have the highest scores, keep track of all of your ideas to go back and look at them over and over again. So that would be some objective ideas around ideation. Third, ranking. Ranking fills your innovation funnel. You score your ideas, and based on the scoring of those ideas, the ones that have the highest score, then those are the ones you should be working on first. And so I look at ranking as being, you could look at innovating or coming up with an objective on testing the scoring method, possibly. Another is how do you make sure that the ideas coming out of ranking are truly high quality, and how do you get those into the funnel? So you want to add high quality ideas to your funnel. You need to keep the funnel full. So this is a key objective that you should always have rolling forward, that you're going to add so many ideas. You're going to have a funnel that has so many unattached ideas, ideas you don't have projects around. So you want to add high quality ideas. Second objective is maybe rescore ideas not in the funnel, but that are in the IMS. These are ideas that may be older ones. You looked at them 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and things change, right? New technologies, another cycle of Moore's Law, legislative change if you're in a regulated industry, investment interest because something has changed and now you're able to raise capital. So you want to go back through and rescore ideas that are in the funnel out of the IMS, because there may be something that pops up that all of a sudden becomes a new idea. And then the third one for ranking is search for external high quality ideas. Ranking doesn't require that all the ideas come from your ideation activities. Ranking says I'm trying to rank good ideas from wherever I can get it. So search for external high quality ideas that can go into your funnel. And then last is execution. This is where ideas become innovation. As I say repeatedly, ideas without execution are a hobby, and I'm not in the hobby business. So some of the objectives you may want to look at is setting some objectives on how many ideas in each phase of execution. Some in the early, market validation, customer validation, prototype, commercial launch. You may want to set an objective of how many proof of concepts you're currently working on or how many have you shown. The other is you measure the end results of innovations that shipped. What has been that innovation impact? So you have to get those products into the market and then go measure and then figure out through the process, what was it that made that thing such a success or maybe not such a great success. One objective in execution that I think people overlook and you should think about it, is tracking your kill rate. The kill rate is how many ideas in each phase don't make it to the next phase. And a lot of people will just have zombie projects that are out there using up money, but never moving forward and just sitting there and they're stuck. And don't be afraid to kill ideas after you start a project. Just because you start it doesn't mean you have to see it to the end. Be realistic. So again, what I look at when I'm setting up the basic structure of objectives for innovations is I built it around the FIRE framework: focus, ideation, ranking, and execution. And then think about what are those objectives. Now, the most important thing then is it's not just about the objectives, it's about the key results. And that's what we're going to talk in the next segment. I'm going to give you a specific example. We're going to take one objective and then create a series of key results so you get a feel for what I'm talking about and how you can think differently about setting your objectives so that your entire organization gets aligned on your innovation agenda and you can have the impact you're looking to have. We'll be right back. Today we're talking about setting innovation objectives, building in your innovation goals, objectives, key results that you want to get the entire organization aligned with. First segment, we talked about what are the basic setups of objectives and how I set my objectives for my organizations. Then in the last segment, I talked about objectives around the FIRE framework. This segment, we're going to walk through one specific example. We're going to take and define one objective, and then we're going to establish some key results for that. Okay? So in this case, the specific example that I would use in setting the objective is I would word an objective, and this is around the funnel of ideas that you're trying to manage to keep the organization successful. So the objective that I would set is ensure a robust funnel of quality ideas to choose projects from. Ensure a robust funnel of quality ideas to choose projects from. Now, I could rewrite that if I don't have if I don't have a funnel, I would take out the word ensure and I would use establish a robust funnel. If I have a small funnel but it's not big enough, you're struggling, then I would say expand a robust funnel of quality ideas to choose projects from. Wording is very important, so get the wording right. So whatever this objective is, word it that it fits to your organization, okay? And then again, what I look at, those objectives, set the end goal, set where the target is, what am I trying to achieve? The key results then are the steps to get there. And I do key results in 6-month chunks. First 6 months, second 6 months. So in this case, I would add in the first half maybe a key result that says add X ideas with a ranking score of at least some score to the funnel, right? I've seen others and I've talked with other chief innovation officers and innovation consultants where they just say add X ideas to the funnel. All ideas are not created equal, and you're looking for quality ideas. So if you use the 5-question method that I teach, that I use, that's in my book, and you follow how we do the scoring, if the score of an idea is a 25, then that means this is just like a mind-blowing idea, right? So maybe you say, add, 5 ideas with a ranking score of at least 15 to the funnel. Right? So that tells me, if an idea is a 10, it doesn't count. You still put it in the IMS system, but it doesn't count towards this. You're looking for high quality ideas. And then maybe a second key result in the first half is develop external sources of ideas that contribute 5 ideas to the funnel. Now, external ideas could be everything from university funded research, if you fund universities, and we do that. It could be co-innovation if you're innovating with another corporate partner and the two of you come up with ideas, right? The key here is to keep a funnel full. You are not going to be able to do that 100% by yourself. You need external sources. So put it in the objective. Develop external sources of ideas that contribute X ideas that go to the funnel. And that would be an example of just 2 key results in the first half. In the second half, I may change my key results here a little bit. One is I would keep maybe the first one, add 5 ideas with a ranking score, and maybe I had 15 in the first half. Maybe in the second half, I'm raising the bar a little bit, and I say a ranking score of 18 to the funnel. So add 5 ideas with a ranking score of 18 or higher to the funnel. So you're kind of inching the bar up, looking for higher and higher quality ideas. And then another key result that you may want to identify then would also be define an open innovation challenge. Now, an open innovation challenge is this is almost like an innovation competition. You define a challenge area. You open it up widely to everybody. You give a prize for the best idea, right? So maybe in the second half, you define an open innovation challenge that will result in 2 ideas with a score of 20 or better. Now, this, measurement of 20 with so many ideas that are 20 or better, it's very good because it's specific. But the other piece that you could also argue, with me successfully would be, is it too much detail? Do I need to put a specific score in, or do I trust my team and just say high quality ideas? So you don't have to get into the situation where you have to put a score in. So you may rewrite this and say, define an open innovation challenge that results in 10 high quality ideas, and that's it. You just leave it. Now, the problem is the vagueness of the word high quality can become something that becomes a challenge, right? It's vague, right? You're leaving it to the people to define, quote, what high quality is. Or maybe you draft the key result, and in your conversation with your team, you say, how would you define high quality? If I said, I want 5 good high quality ideas, what would be the bar you would set for yourself that would make you think you've achieved that key result? So in some cases, you may draft your objectives, but you need to get buy-in. It's not a force. This is what it is, and I'm forcing it on you. This is, you need to get buy-in from across the entire team. So hopefully you didn't get lost on this. This will be up on the show notes at killerinnovations.com, so check it out. But the objective, ensure a robust funnel of quality ideas to choose projects from. That's the objective. And then you've got the key results, first half and second half. And in one case, I repeat them. I always want the funnel to be full. So I'm going to set the objective that we keep putting more ideas. We add ideas to the funnel, which means we're constantly pulling from ideation activities. We're pulling from external sources. We're always looking to keep the innovation funnel full. All right. And then the other is recognize that particularly if you're not doing it today, you want to put it into the objectives of looking and leveraging external sources for ideas. Because in the early days of any innovation effort, your funnel will be full and you're just cranking some great ideas. You get to year 3, year 4, and it becomes a heavy, heavy lift. You kind of get this euphoric effect in the first 24 months, and then you are into the hard work. And the hard work is to make your innovation effort sustainable over an extended period of time. So with that, you understanding the objectives and the key results, here's some things and points that I want to make sure you keep these in the back of your mind, the way I do it. The way I do it is I keep a rolling 12 months. The current 6-month objectives and key results. We already have the next 6 months and key results. As we wrap up the first 6 months, then we actually go out and do the further out. So we always have 12 months or 2 halves of objectives and key results that we can look at. The other is to look back. Look back at the objectives and key results that worked and which ones that didn't work. And then adjust going forward. These are not cast in concrete. You set the objective and 2 weeks later something changes, change them. There's nothing that says they're cast in concrete. The objective is to get as much alignment so that the organization, everybody's pulling the oars in the same direction. And the other is test your objectives. Just as we talked about the objectives and key results about, add X ideas with a ranking score of at least 15 to the funnel. Is that a good number? Go test it. Go back after you've done this for a little while, go back and look at those and say, what are those ideas that had a score of 15 above? And was that really a good predictor for their long-term success and impact to the overall objective? And the other is share and learn. Find other people and other companies that have a similar role to you and ask them how they do their objectives and learn. Or better yet, you can join the Innovators community, which is our private Slack community, and you can share your objectives and get coaching and advice on what they would or would not do with regards to your objectives. Because let me tell you, objective setting is incredibly hard. Done well, you get unbelievable accelerated results. Done poorly, you inject a huge amount of confusion into your organization. And innovation is just too important not to commit the time. To be clear about what the objective is and clear about what are the steps to get there in the form of the key results. So good luck. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after in segment 4 for 5 minutes to new ideas, and we'll be right back. Back in the early days of this show, I would share what I called a killer question in each episode. These questions were designed to be used in your personal, team, or organization's innovation efforts. Now, based on feedback from listeners just like you, we've decided to bring it back with some improvements. Each episode of the Killer Innovations has a segment that I'm now calling 5 Minutes to New Ideas. It's designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about yourself, your business, and your products and services by asking unique, funny, and sometimes crazy questions. These questions are designed to force you to look beyond the obvious and to uncover ideas and opportunities you never before considered. So, get out your notebook and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 Minutes to New Ideas. In the traditional R&D process, the product is developed and then handed over to the design team to wrap it and make it look pretty. The drawback is that this approach is out of date. In the last 10 years, consumers have become much more design savvy. Consumers want functional, usable design that highlights ease of use or emotive designs that adds to the personal connection with the product or in some way broadcast a statement about the user's more subtle, hard-to-define beliefs about themselves. We can all name a handful of companies that are melding form and function in a way that resonates with users and creates a deep-seated brand loyalty. Let's take a look at JetBlue. They are essentially a low-cost carrier, but their design does a masterful job of suggesting that they provide a full-service experience. Their terminal at JFK is a flashback to the old world style of travel, more elegant, sophisticated than its customers would expect it to be, and more pleasant to spend time in compared with the terminals of most of its competitors, the so-called legacy carriers. It's important to constantly ask why you develop your product elements in a particular order. This is especially true if your organization has been in the business for a substantial length of time, and yet you're still developing your products in an order that was devised to suit production methods from decades ago. Ford Motor Company worked with IDEO and the New York-based design firm Smart Design on the Ford Fusion. This was a daring move for Ford, as the car industry has always believed in keeping new ideas proprietary. By bringing in outside firms, they risked their designs being leaked prematurely. However, they recognized both that they needed to do something bold with the design to reflect the radically new nature of the car, and they didn't know where to start. Ford wanted a design that reflected the fact that the hybrid car was something new. Part of this process was realizing that their potential customer base was made up of people with widely divergent needs and wants. There were the hardcore hyper-milers who keep spreadsheets detailing the performance they got out of every gallon of gas. There were customers who were concerned about the environment, but didn't think much about it beyond the decision to go hybrid. And then there were people who were simply looking to lower the amount they spent on gas, but weren't emotionally invested in the environmental aspect of the vehicle. All of these groups wanted different levels of information and feedback from the dashboard. The hypermilers wanted to keep score of their gas mileage and monitor how the car was performing at different points during the driving experience. The less environmentally focused customers wanted a simpler, less distracting display. The only thing all the potential customers agreed on was that there needed to be an easy-to-find clock to display somewhere on the dash. You can never get rid of the clock. So rather than developing the dashboard last to meet the specs of the car, as it's typically done in the industry, the design team reversed the process and started working on the dash long before they even had the car itself designed. They started off interviewing hundreds of potential customers, but quickly realized that no one design was going to make everybody happy. After multiple rounds of testing, they developed a dash that allowed the driver to pick one of 4 settings that determined what appeared on the display. Once this concept was finalized, it was sent to the engineers to incorporate into the overall specs of the vehicle. By reversing the order in which their process was normally done, here's the car, now figure out how the dash works within it, the combined team of Ford, IDEO, and Smart Design were able to come up with a unique experience that reflected the environmental philosophy of the car and give users a customizable experience that was much more likely to please the individuals who purchased the car. So, to uncover opportunities like this in your organization, ask yourself, in what order do you do the R&D process? And what would happen if you flipped it? Now, to answer this question, you're going to need to dig in. Ask yourself, in what order do you develop an idea and its components? What would happen if you changed that order? How did you make the determination about your customers' priorities in regards to how you ordered the process of R&D? And when do you involve design in R&D? And what would be the impact if you changed it? A key element of success and innovation is to challenge the processes put in place, even for research and development. If you are using the same process this year as you did last year, then innovate the process. I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note over at phil@killerinnovations.com. Now, the reason I've been doing this show since 2005 is to pay back my early mentor by paying it forward. My first mentor, Bob Davis, invested an immense amount of time in training and coaching me, which had a major impact on my career. When I went back and asked him how I could pay him back, he just laughed and said I couldn't. I had to pay it forward. If I could ask for a favor, could you help me pay it forward? How? 1, give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. You can find the show notes and the entire show catalog over at killerinnovations.com. I'll talk to you next week. In the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.